Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. As you know, yesterday was Thanksgiving, and here in America, very little happens on Thanksgiving that doesn't involve food or football. So, very little got done on the boats. Absolutely no making things. But unbeknownst to the people around me, while football and food was happening, I was inventing things clandestinely when nobody knew. We're sitting around and I'm looking at a plate full of turkey and dressing and I'm inventing things. So, what was I inventing? Well, as you know, I've been painting boats recently, and I said I was going to take the little Mozilla 400 into the paint shop and do it up as a Porsche RSK. I thought of doing it as James Dean's Porsche RSK, the one that killed him, but he didn't have any numbers on it. It was just a silver RSK. And so a silver boat, you wouldn't connect it to James Dean at all. So I decided to do that one that raced at Riverside. My dad took me out to Riverside Raceway to watch some of the early Can-Ams. I got to see Hap Sharp and Jim Hall run the first series of chaparrals. And there was a guy that had a 427 Cobra. Now, let me tell you about the 427 Cobra. Riverside Raceway has this long straightaway that's it's about a mile long, and there's a hairpin at the end of it. And then you go through this, and there's a bunch of S's here, and that's where we were seated. And then there's one turn, and then you go down the straightaway. So this 427 Cobra was always the first car at the end of the straightaway and the last car through the S's. So this was right before, the whole Can-Am thing came into being. So there were, McLarens out there and the chaparrals. I really liked the chaparrals. I thought they were brilliant engineering, just absolutely brilliant. Although the McLarens were just brute force, and the Cobra was brute force and ignorance. But I digress. So back to my inventing. I'm thinking about windscreens, and I'm going to paint the Mozilla silver. Now, if you remember on the American Spirit, which was the hydroplane that was roughly this size, done up in American flag colors, the way I did the canopy was I painted the area silver. I masked it off, then painted it silver, and then put translucent blue over that, and then just fogged a little bit of gold around the edges. Lately, I've been liking that fog around the edges. It just kind of differentiates between sheet metal or fiberglass and glass or plexiglass. It just kind of sets it off, and it reads like a different material. So I kind of like that idea. So here's my thinking, what I'm going to do on the Mozilla 400. If you remember, on the American Spirit, the big one like this, after I did the whole canopy, I outlined it with 16th inch wide black pinstriping tape. Here's my plan for the Mozilla. The whole boat's going to be silver to begin with, which is the perfect base for my canopy color. So here's the plan. Instead of using masking tape to establish the shape, I'm going to use that black pinstriping tape And I'll put that down, and I'll give it a couple of days for the glue to get really good and set, because then I'm going to put more tape over it, and I don't want to pull it off. So once the black outline tape is set for a couple of days, I'm going to take this crepe-based, blue tape or something similar to it, and mask very close to the inside edge of that black tape all along here, then seal the whole thing off. So I'll have just the canopy area and maybe just a hint of that black tape, but I'm doing my best just to keep this. So if you would imagine, this is the surface of the paint, and the black tape is this thick, and here's the edge of it. The next piece of tape is going to be this thick and going that way. So that's my plan. Then, instead of using a rattle can that has a wide spray, because I want to leave a little silvers in the edges, I'm going to use airbrush candy color paints. A blue, or I'm thinking indigo. Indigo might go good with that. And then just paint in the center of the cockpit and let the overspray kind of go out to the edges. So the edges will still kind of have that silver, and I'll make it bigger and bigger and bigger until it's just right, to where I'll have a black outline with that tape. The center part will be darker, and as it gets towards the edges, it'll kind of fade in, and it'll almost be silver on both sides, but not quite. I'll put just enough of that translucent indigo paint that there'll be just a little color difference, but it'll be thick here in the center of the cockpit and very thin at the edges. What do you guys think about that? If it doesn't work, here's another reason I'm doing it on the Mozilla. The hatch that has the simulated canopy is quite small and can go for a ride in a vat of lacquer thinner very easily. So if it doesn't work, I can always redo it. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, that I have this boat in the works, and nothing really new coming down the pipe except for that pump boat. And I showed you the pump the other day, how I'm modifying the pump. I'm doing what did we call it on the jets? We did inlet ducting massaging. I'm massaging the inlet ducting to make it more efficient. So the energy goes into blowing water out and not making water do 90-degree corners. In plumbing, that's how we would slow water down. If you had a house up here and a long slope down here and a septic system down here, you didn't want the water blowing into the leach line and blowing the line out. So we'd put a bunch of 90 degrees in the pipe coming down the hill as an energy dissipator, because turning water 90 degrees soaks up energy. So you don't want that in your pump. I have a name for the pump boat. I think I'm going to paint it lime green and purple metal flake and call it Pump Daddy. That's the way, Oh, until next time, jet out.